receive the cup. There's nothing to beat a win at Wembley.
Black who's going to go for it. Black for the 1 point to win the grand final from Halifax, and he's done it. Ben Black strikes.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Talking the Facts Live, proudly sponsored by eclipseenergy.co.uk. I've got all your home energy and boiling heating needs. Sponsors of the club, plug. Joining me as always, myself, Mike Haig, is Rick Farrell, fan, producer, extraordinaire. And because we've actually got some proper Rugby League news, we've actually got a proper Rugby League guest. Rugby League World editor and friend of the show, Matt Shaw. How are you doing?
I'm complimented to be called a proper guest. What the normal guests get tagged with.
They're just guests. They are just guests.
Proper.
They are Rugby League fans.
That's the best compliment I've ever had. Proper guest.
We aim to please here. We aim to please on this podcast. We've actually got some proper Rugby League news. That's why we've got you on. So without further ado, let's get straight in. So we've been putting it off. We've had meetings, to have another meeting, to schedule another meeting, and finally some news that we all knew were going to happen: the cancellation of the Championship and League One season. Personally, I think it's the right decision. What do you just think?
I think it's the right decision for the whole of the comp, but I think everyone would agree that the manner in which it's being done has not been ideal. Look, I can see the arguments from the clubs who say it should have happened. Clubs have been on furlough, they've saved money. The money that it would cost them to come back would have been basically balanced out by the money that they've saved. But at the same time, there was still a lot of issues regarding gyms. You know, a lot of clubs further down the scale, they use public gyms as their training facilities and stuff like that. How do you access them? It's going to be very complicated. The problem is, for me, how long it's taken. Didn't need to take as long as it did. Just don't see why we wait. Well, I do know why. The reality is the RFL, as it was described to me yesterday by a Super League CEO, it's all they work all on legal. It's all based legal. So all they ever do is make sure they've covered the back legally. And by pushing the date back as far as they could, it made it look like it gave the perception that they've tried as hard as they can to get us back going. Yeah. The reality is it's never going to happen, but it gives the likes of any clubs who would want to maybe pursue legal action for not playing less of ammunition, effectively. Look, they've left it till July. They can't play because we can't have crowds back till October. Monkey dory. There you go. It's disappointing. We've got an autumn comp. They wanted 16 teams. I think that was an absolute dream, just delusional. They wanted 16 teams. If they do 8, they've done well. That's where we are.
Rick, what do you think? Are you disappointed that you won't be able to see the blue and white down the Shea, or are you relieved?
It's always disappointing to lose out on any games down at the Shea and anywhere else. I'm watching the Facts, having followed them for as many years as we all have. But it's definitely the right decision. Like you say, it's one of those things. It's better to get it done now, and then they can plan for the future. The club's going to be on furlough until October anyway, so it probably makes sense with this competition coming back that it's, you know, they've timed it really well. You're talking about covering the backs legal. I understand that. They want everything to be down to the letter of the law because obviously they've had government money and things like that. They want to make sure that everything's kosher, so you can't blame them for that. But yeah, it was the right decision. Like you said, like Matt said, maybe not gone about in the best way PR-wise, but I mean, the fallout has been quite farcical, especially at the Super League again with Toronto pulling out, but I'm sure we'll come on to that in a little bit. But yeah, right decision. Still disappointing, but I just look forward to it. Gives us a chance to plan better for 2021 and beyond.
Definitely. It doesn't just give the clubs, I think, better chance. It gives the game itself, because 2021 is a massive year. We spoke briefly before we came on about how big next year could potentially be, not just in sport, but in life, really, in culture and that sort of thing. But especially in Rugby League with the World Cup coming up, I think it has been wrong if we'd have tried to make a hodgepodge of a season just to fulfil people's egos and money in the bank, that sort of stuff. I think it gives us all a chance to properly plan for that. As we mentioned, that there is going to be an autumn tournament there, which is a good idea. I think it's good that it's kind of been like, well, you can apply if you want to, that sort of thing. Matt, we've got you on. So you're kind of more in the rugby league world, so to speak. What do you know about this tournament then?
Right, well, I'll go into that before I give my opinion. The reality is they've set up a 16-team format. So it'd be 16 teams, 2 conferences, East and West, all regional to start with. It'd be a round robin. Everyone play everyone. Top 2 from both conferences going to a semi-final, then a grand final. 9 weeks, happy days. There you go. The issue for a lot of clubs is that it's not going to be worthwhile for the potential reward. There's 250 grand's worth of prize money that's going to be split up. Now, I do have that info somewhere, but not in front of me. But I know in reality, if you win your conference, I think you get 35 grand if you win your conference, and 20 grand maybe if you come second, and then it's 25 grand if you end up in the semis, and if you win it, it's 35 grand and something like that. So the maximum you can get if you win it is 70 grand. 70 grand to come back with testing costs and bringing people, well, not a furlough because furlough will finish, but testing costs. And you're going to struggle to make it financially worthwhile, I think.
Well, I was going to say, they're coming off the furlough in October anyway. You're going to be paying your players again regardless. So maybe it is a case of they've tried to line it up with that and encourage clubs to come in. If it's going to end up costing you a fortune, you then have to pay through. The thing that I didn't understand, how the player contracts work, because they generally end in October. And
they end on the 30th of November. So, yeah, they end 30th of November and the finals on the 28th. So they covered that side, but they start the weekend October 3rd, 4th. So you can't just go into a game. You're going to have a couple of weeks of training. So they've got to bring them off further there. So there's that cost, say there's a testing cost. There's the logistics. Are employers going to want the players playing rugby? I don't know. Are the players going to want to play rugby? Well, people coming out from outside environments. I think there's a lot to work through. And the other thing, I actually think it's a poor idea. I think it'd be much better off, and this is just my opinion, they'd be better off starting the 2021 season early. I think they should bring it back. Look, the 1895 Cup don't have much value, does it? And the reason for that is there's midweek games and clubs just really take it seriously. So you got 3 midweek games, is it? 2 midweek games, and then the semis. Can't remember if it's 3 for League One and 2 for Championship.
I think so.
So forget your midweek games. Have 2 weekend games there, or 3 weekend games, or 2 weekend for Championship. So that extends your season by 2 weeks. If you start it in November, this is my proposal. Start it in November, end of November, start the season. Right? You've got Boxing Day game and New Year's game, something that I think there would be an appetite for personally. I know it's a football tradition, but I do think you would get enough at that level to make it worthwhile for the rugby. Have two extra weeks to pad out with the 1895, and somewhere in, I don't know, June, July, wherever you want, have 2 free weeks, which is like a mini break. However, the likelihood is if you start in November, the weather's going to call off plenty of games. So you've got 2 weeks to catch games up to therefore avoid midweek games anyway. So you had a 2-week block where there's nothing going on. You had 2 weeks of 1895 Cup. That's 4 weeks back. Start end of November. That takes you to end of December. So you're only 4 weeks behind where you would be anyway. And don't forget, there's a World Cup, which even at Championship level, a lot of players do play in it. Yeah. Because they play for Scotland or whoever. James Saltonstall played for Italy, didn't he? Blah blah blah.
Well, Bernard's going to play for Jamaica, isn't he?
Exactly. So have that.
Nationals.
Yeah. So have that little bit of a break between the playoffs, the end of the playoffs and the World Cup. I think everyone's happy.
The only issue I can see there, Matt, is that, again, speaking from an Halifax point of view, and you're an Halifax Town fan, lots and lots of football and rugby going on a pitch in November, December, January. It's not going to do well.
An issue without doubt. Can't deny that. I just think for the game, it's a better idea than having a comp where even the winners are going to barely be able to justify it financially to enter. I just think it's a better solution. And as you say, you've got clubs like, so off the top of my head, who share grounds, Halifax. Who else shares it?
Swinton.
Championship level. Swinton.
Lee.
I'm not talking about Super League, by the way. Super League will are playing as they are, so they can start in January.
Yeah.
And you can still, by the way, you can still tie in the Challenge Cup rounds because you're still going to be playing till that end of September. Well, the Challenge Cup finals are now going to be played in July, so there's no reason why that should be a problem. But I'm just trying to think at Championship level. So Halifax share a ground. Swinton have got the Rugby Union, haven't they? Although I don't know how the Rugby Union scene is going to work this year. I don't see how they can combat Rugby Union with the way that they play the game with scrummage and what have you. Leeds a little bit of football played every now and again, isn't there? Off the top of York will obviously have their new ground sharing with the football. Overall, I think that's a better solution
as well. You've got the case of Dewsbury and Bradford playing out of one ground as well, so you're gonna have to try and factor in days. I mean,
we probably need to find out what's going on with Bradford if they're going to go back to Wadsall, because that was a plan. They didn't make a secret of it, did they? Whether they're going to be able to go back next year or what?
The whole thing's just a bit up in the air at the minute, isn't it?
Well, it looks like this comp's going to happen. I'm just not sure if. I just think they'd have maybe been better off just starting the season early. Because the other thing as well, if we're honest, how much appetite is there going to be from supporters for this comp?
I think by this point, people, it's Rugby League's come back and we've had the NRL and obviously Super League's going to start. But you find out we're watching other sports. There's nothing beats watching your own team play, whether it's behind closed doors or on TV or whatever. Nothing beats your own team. So I do think there will be an appetite there. It's just how do you, like you say, you've got to justify it financially. And if it's a case of crowds can be in stadiums by then fair dues,
The other thing as well, I'd point out, they're saying, correct me if I'm wrong here, but grounds are going to be, you're going to have to basically social distance within grounds, or they're going to be allowed to be a third full, is it? Something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I would think that they'd have to use at least 2, maybe even 3 stands at the share, which then brings extra costs as well. So I'm just not convinced that there's going to be many clubs that buy into it, to be honest.
No. Do you think it'll be made mandatory to take part, or?
No, they said it's voluntary. It's voluntary. So if you want to play, you can play. If you don't, you don't.
Don't put any pressure on the governing body then to force a comeback.
No. I don't think they can. They said it's voluntary now. So and you can't force some clubs to play and not others.
Yeah, because that's completely unfair, isn't it?
Yeah. So I just think if there's a bit more prize money involved, it'd push a few more clubs in. But
and also you got to think if we're not letting fans in, it's the potential of streaming games and the cost that comes under, and you've got the minefield of people not wanting the season ticket money back because they've not had the money and stuff like that. The value for money. There is
that element of it. There is that element of it that you get some games in and fans may not ask for refunds in the manner that they're asking. But if you look around what the Super League clubs are saying, no one's asking for refunds anyway. It's like a minute proportion. And to be honest, I would think as you get lower down, you get to championship levels where even at that level, it's more hardcore than Super League level.
Yeah.
Just don't see from a business perspective it being worthwhile coming back to try and cut down on potential cuts when I don't think many fans are going to ask for refunds anyway.
No. And then we've seen this week with the Leeds United and Liverpool trophy presentations that fans want to be at grounds, and to have rugby league games without fans is just awful. And again, we mentioned off air about the NRL season and how good it is to see fans actually in grounds, like properly kind of mixing. I think it's the right decision in that respect to bring it back when we can actually have these fans in there. And personally, I can't wait to get back.
It's got to be across the board, though, hasn't it? You can't have it.
Yeah.
Because we've got a big stadium that we can spread out in. That's all right. And then maybe a team that don't have the same capacity as us, they can't come back because they can only have X amount in. So they've got to try and keep everyone happy. And as you know, with anything in life, if you try and keep everyone happy, you end up annoying pretty much.
Oh yeah, true.
It's another reason why I also think we should just start the season early. And thinking about it in my head, just considering it while we've been having this, maybe you have to start the first weekend of December after the contracts have transferred over, because obviously players are going to move clubs. But the thing is as well, come December, you would hope that the rules around crowds are going to be a bit more relaxed. You know, on the hope that they've had a month of it being successfully implemented, and maybe it can go up. So, yeah, I'm not having a dig at the RFL for what they try to do. They try to get some rugby on. I'm just not sure if it's the best way of doing it, if I'm honest.
Things are moving so quickly day by day, though, aren't they? It's kind of like you put yourself out there, you nail your colours to the mast, and you make one decision, and then it all changes the next day, and you know you're having to backtrack. So I do understand that by leaving it as long as they can, they want to make sure that they're getting it spot on. But it just seems to be that we just seem to be a bit slower on the uptake than maybe some other sports when it comes to
it's a very thankless task, though, isn't it? It's banging the drum of unprecedented times, and you can't blame the RFL for not doing a great job, because it's something they won't have anticipated. It's not something they've had
it won't be in the RFL handbook how to deal with global worldwide infections.
But you kind of learn as you go along, and like you can take a book from other sports of how they've done it, and put other sports that are awash with money, which rugby league just doesn't really have. Really, we've seen, but even look at other sports, cricket with the amount of money they've had, and how good they've kind of come back. They've still got no fans in grounds either, so it's going to be a long while since until we get that. But hopefully, by the time we do get back properly, we can go and have a pint, have a bovril.
Well, this is the other thing they've got to gauge as well. Rugby league's got an ageing population. What's the sort of confidence in the people about actually going to a game in person anymore?
Well, this is what they're talking about with, you know, how many people would go to the games. This is kind of what I was touching on earlier. You know, if you open up for a comp where really nothing to play for, how many people are going to want to go? Not just because of the interest in the actual comp, but health reasons as well. You know.
Yeah.
Just not
95 games. The attendances were shocking.
Yeah, exactly. So you do that, and there was a trip to Wembley at the end of that.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of this, at best you're getting 70 grand.
Yeah.
Is the home team, highest placed home team's ground, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I don't know what the plans were for the grand final of it, but I think the home. So basically, they'd have gone top of Conference A, placed second in Conference B, and the team that won the conference would play in grand final. But what the grand final, I don't know.
Yeah, and things like, say, if Halifax did play and got there and stuff, and you say how many, like let's say it goes to full capacity, you've got 8 teams there. It's a round robin. Let's say Halifax get 3 home games and then another home game if they get through. That's open the share up the 5-6 games, and the cost that comes under as well.
It's just a lot of, you know, it's a lot of money for clubs for potentially not a lot of reward. You know, you've got to finish in top 2 in your conference just to get any money. And you know, I'm sure Facts would be confident. Yeah, I'm sure Facts would be confident doing that, but it's not a guarantee, is it? You know, not a guarantee for anyone.
Envisage a scenario where maybe the uptake of clubs isn't what they expected, and they might end up cancelling the idea. Can you see?
Yeah, I can. From speaking around the clubs, there's not a wash of interest. I think the 3 clubs that have come out publicly and said they're interested are Bradford, Dewsbury, and Batley, but no one else has. So you've got 3. The London clubs won't play, and the southern clubs won't, because they travel, because that's an extra cost for them.
I think no one can really make a definitive decision. It's all going to rely on crowds coming back in it. That is the only stipulation for every club, because making games behind closed doors is just financial suicide for any club, and it won't happen. So that's.
I like I said at the start, I do see the argument from the clubs who wanted it back, saying, well, and it's true. All the clubs have, while they've been not playing, have earned a ton of cash, because they've been sat with players on your staff on furlough with no overheads and Sky money coming in. So, you know, don't let clubs fool you that they've had it rough during the summer, because they haven't. But the challenge will be next year, because there'll probably be some rebates from Sky, which won't be as severe as they have been in Super League, but rebates all the same. You still don't know where you're going to be with crowds, stuff like that. So next year's the year that has the potential for risk. This year, though, they should all be fairly well off. And to be honest, from speaking to agents and coaches, you can tell that they're all better off because it's a very, very active recruitment market at the minute across the championship. There's a lot of clubs trying to sign a lot of players.
Interesting. Well, very, very, very interesting. Anyone? Well, we're going to come to this later on. But as soon as you touched upon the topic, you've released a couple of nuggets of information for facts there, Matt, about Paul Brealey going to Toronto.
Yeah, well, he was.
Came out of nowhere, I must admit.
He was. I don't know what he's doing now. Don't know if there'll be a Toronto club to go to be honest.
Yeah.
Which, look, it'd be a real shame for him. I think Facts fans would always agree that if a player gets a move to Super League, no one's going to stand in his way, you know. And when that news came out, I didn't see anyone moaning and groaning. How can you, you know?
No.
Not playing part-time rugby, and let's not forget one that were only playing amateur rugby just over a year ago. Gets an opportunity to go to Super League. Who's going to stop him and be disgruntled about it? But I'm sure we're going to come on to Toronto. What's going to go on there? I don't know. What would Liam Harris? Yeah. Looks like he'll be there next year. So good signing, I think. 23, young, some Super League experience. Played in the champ last year and played in a side that made the top 5. I don't think you can moan with a signing like that. To be honest, he's got a decent record. All in all, I think that's if and when that gets over the dotted line, I think that's a good piece of business. To be honest.
Yeah, it's good to see that it came originally on a loan deal, but he wants to make that. So it's a permanent signing. It's going to be then.
Yeah, it'd be permanent for next year.
Did we get exclusive? That just happen?
You're in League Express, mate. Come on, you're in League Express.
Shocking.
They paid me for exclusives. Come on. It wasn't as when I wrote it. I said closing in, and that's where I understood it to be.
Yeah, but no, yeah. Just mention Paul.
It's not official, but it will be.
Just mention Paul Brealey then. And just mention Paul Brealey made me think about Chester Butler actually, and how bad it's bull, how rotten luck he's had. Big break in a Super League, he goes over there injured, don't manage to play a game, and the season's finished.
I heard he's still struggling as well.
He's
still struggling apparently, yeah. He's
definitely
having a bit rough.
I was going to say,
I know this is incredibly unprofessional, but I've just got low battery, so I'm going to go get my charger. You'll have to nap for 2 minutes.
So in that case, then we'll call into the first part there. Join us straight after. Oh, welcome back to another part of Talking the Bats of Life with myself, Mike Egg, and Rick Farrell. Joining us this week, we've got Rugby League World editor Matt Shaw and Rugby League Bat Chats host running out of charge on the phone or computer. That never happens on Bat Chat. Standard slippage going on.
Good old George King. Good old George.
Where do we get?
Wonderful for you to join us, and again, very useful to have because the next story that we've got that's happened, Toronto pulling out of Super League now. Very, very polarising club, very polarising story. It's a massive news that does transcend rugby league again. What are your thoughts on that? I'll come to you first, Rick, because you've not had the Toronto experience.
Well, I was going to say you've both been, so you probably.
Did you not go to Toronto, Rick?
I'm not allowed to swear on that. The whole thing's just been absolute lunacy, hasn't it? I mean, the thing that's really got me is the amount of people that are just sort of happy to see the demise. I think it's absolutely sickening. You know, we could have, if financial dealings had gone a different way, we could have been without a sport, and every club could have gone bust. So the fact that anyone is sort of reveling in the downfall of a club is no good, especially one that plays across the pond and has all these different things to deal with. They're not taking the Sky money, you know. Are they a Canadian company? Are they a Manchester club? But at the end of the day, they're promoting the game abroad, and to me, that should outweigh everything. So I'm sad to see what's happening with them. I hope that they can get it back together for next year, because, like you say, from what I've heard from everyone that's been out there, it's a different world, and it's something that we need more of in the game.
It's an experience, and you're absolutely right in what you're saying. It's an amazing place. It's an amazing team when you think about it. But like I've always said on this subject, if you've got a bloke with God knows how many zeros on the end of his name who absolutely loves rugby league and wants it to prosper, it can only be a good thing. And then like with the kind of brought a sister club in Ottawa in and that sort of thing. But it's a crying shame, and it's a crying shame for Super League fans not to go over to Toronto, because I know we spoke to Laurie a few weeks ago. I weren't too sure if he's going, but obviously teams aren't going out there now, and it is genuinely an amazing experience there. Not to rub it in or sound smug or anything like that. It's just a brilliant. I've got my Jeremy Clarkson face on. Like, we can't help it, but it was a very, very lucky experience to have. But regardless of that, they could pull in the Sonny Bill Williams. They could pull in these players. Now, Sonny Bill Williams is shockingly going back to the NRL.
Well, at least he's staying in rugby league.
Yeah, he's staying in rugby league. The big question now is, well, from what's happened is, Toronto left competition. They've been expunged from the records, which is another debate in itself. And there's doubts whether or not they would come back in 2021. What have you heard, Matt, in terms of them going back into Super League in 2021, or back at all in 2021?
Oh, right. So I don't think they'll be back in Super League.
Right.
And I say that I'm very disappointed to say that, because I agree with a lot of what you've both said. The reality is, I agree with pretty much everything that Rick touched on about the fact no furlough. I mean, that would have killed pretty much every club in reality. If they had Toronto, are the only club who haven't had it. So, they've no Sky money. They've not been able to have any crowds, which is really their only source of income. It's all been stacked against them, and I don't think anyone at Super League level is begrudging them of that, or is disputing that. The thing that's annoyed Super League is the timing.
Yeah, of course.
Because, look, if Toronto would have come out and said in May, look, lads, we are really struggling here. We don't know if we can play. None of the clubs would have kicked up a foot. Well, there would have maybe been one or two who have got an agenda against them who would have gone for them. But the majority would not have cared. They've gone, you know what? We completely understand. Not a problem. Not a problem. You say I'll just be ready next year. But the fact that they did it after the fixture had been released, and within 2 weeks of the season starting, is what's got everyone's back up big time. And you can understand that, because it has brought the game into disrepute and damaged the brand. The other thing that hasn't really been reported yet, I'm sure it'll come out in the next couple of days. There was a meeting on Friday. What day are we on today? Saturday? No, it'll be Thursday. It was Thursday. Where basically, David Argyle presented to clubs about his vision for Toronto and what he thinks he can bring and all that sort of stuff. Let's just say that the clubs weren't very impressed by David's presentation. More his attitude. I think they were annoyed that there wasn't really an apology in there. He asked for Sky money, which has been a big positive from the Super League club's perspective. And he didn't really, and he talked about being publicly owned. And the idea is to become the Green Bay Packers of rugby, they've got hundreds of thousands of people who effectively are members who chip in. He's on about 100,000 people paying $100. Now, call me a pessimist, in it, and often I'm not. I think he'd struggle to get 10,000. I think 10,000 would be unbelievably ambitious. So the clubs didn't really take too kindly to that address, and I think that may have that certainly hasn't worked in their favour from what I gather. So I just find it hard to see how they're back in the comp, because he's I think he's put a lot of money in.
Mm.
We don't want to put as much in as he's continuing to put. So unless they can get resource or a new owner or a new bidder, I'm not sure we'll see the Toronto Wolfpack back. And I'm really disappointed to say that because
Wow.
I don't care. I don't care what people say. And I've argued this on social media. I don't argue much anymore because I just feel like I'm wasting my time. But a good Toronto Wolfpack is good for the game. By the way, before I go on to that, the way that they've treated the players with no pay is disgusting and unacceptable.
Yes.
There's no condoning that. No condoning that whatsoever. It's wrong. It's wrong.
I think the players deserve respect for the way that they've handled themselves when not.
They have, yeah.
Apart from the odd sort of family member coming out and saying that you've not heard them all over social media bagging the club, so they deserve a lot of respect for that.
But there's no condoning that. But I will categorically and staunchly defend that a good Toronto Wolfpack is brilliant for rugby league, and you will not convince me otherwise. I hate to say it, but our club is a very proud club with a lot of history. Toronto are absolutely smashing the attendance out of the gate, and they're not even 4-year-old. You know, and that's not just a dig at Halifax. It's not a dig at anyone. It's just the reality.
No.
You know? For a lot of clubs, they get more than some Super League clubs do. So you can't convince me that they don't have the potential to be good for rugby league and aren't good for rugby league already. But I'm hoping it will change. I'm hoping, and often these circumstances do, and it's a very quick moving story. But asking me right now to make a judgment call, I'm not convinced we'll see Toronto Wolfpack again.
So do you think that's a financial thing then, or do you think that'll be a case of the letter of the law of the bylaws of the game? Do you think they'll be expunged because they've not fulfilled the fixtures, or do you think that they'll financially it'll be too much and that they'll I think the finances. I don't think that Dave wants to invest that sort of money again. And the only, if you got the Sky money, fair enough, but I don't see him getting the Sky money. And to be honest, I do and I don't have sympathy because ultimately they came into the league back in 2017 on the condition they wouldn't take money. You can't just suddenly change your mind and expect them and go, oh yeah, right. I just don't see that happening. The thing that's important. Everyone seems to think that Toronto costs the game millions. They don't. They don't cost the game. There's no funding going into it. They pay the travel expenses. It's not cost the game. It's cost supporters a bit to go over. Don't get me wrong, but the game itself, being a bit of a freebie, really. And some people argue, well, yeah, we should give them Sky money to continue what they're doing. However, they agreed not to get it.
Yeah.
So, they said they get a TV deal, and that hasn't come off, and that's kind of been the problem as well. They thought that they did have a TV deal in there, which
do you think from their perspective though that they kind of earned the Sky money, if you know what I mean? They've done their bit to get up to Super League, and they put more eyes on Super League. But
completely, listen, I agree with that, and I'm sure they do feel like they've earned it. And you could argue, have they or have they not? But the clubs are already 270 grand down on Sky rebates. You chuck another effectively by Toronto not taking money. They all get an extra 150 grand. So, the 420 grand down every Super League club, what they normally are. It's not the year to be asking to get Sky money, I'm afraid.
No.
I think it's one of them. Do you think when they started the business, do you think they got enough help from the rugby league community in terms of advice? Someone should have been saying, look, what you're doing isn't sustainable with the return.
I think,
you need to be looking at Sky money here.
To an extent, a lot of people criticise the salary cap, and the salary cap, don't get me wrong, is a mess. But that's not a reason why the business is failing. They're still only spending a certain amount of money. Yes, there's a Sonny Bill side, but I think people still fail to recognise they're not saying that Sonny Bill as a player is worth 50 grand a week, because he's clearly not. No rugby league player is, but it's his brand and that side of it that makes it worth it for them. Unfortunately, they've not been able to capitalise on that properly because they haven't got Sonny Bill out to Toronto through no fault of their own.
No, yeah.
So
that's what's killed them. That is what's killed them. The fact that they've not been able to.
Mike, you said it. If it wasn't for furlough, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. The question is, would we be having the conversation further down the line? Maybe. But it's all if buts and maybes. Would they in a few years have been able to crack a TV deal? We don't know. We don't know any of these things. But yes, furlough has brought this on, but it doesn't excuse not paying your players and the way that it's been and the timing of it. that is a real problem right now. I do hope we see him back. I don't see them. I put the question out on social media: what is there to gain from kicking Toronto out? And I don't know what there is. What do you gain from kicking them out? What does the sport gain from kicking Toronto Wolfpack out of Super League and/or Rugby League as a whole?
The message as well.
It's a lose-lose situation.
Ottawa, we've got a brand new Canadian team about to start up their journey from scratch. What message does that send to them and their new fans?
Yeah, and that's another thing I've not liked as well. Everyone's saying, "Oh, this is why we shouldn't allow Ottawa in New York." In rubbish. That's like saying, "Oh, well, Bradford went in administration 4 times. Don't let Halifax in the game anymore because they're from West Yorkshire." What a load of crap.
That's the point I was just going to make. If Toronto, the question you posed, Matt's really good, because if Toronto do go, well, what's it to gain? It just feeds into the myth that Rugby League is an M62 corridor game. We can't allow other people in from different corners of the world or anything like that. It is a real shame. We will touch on that and a bit more in the third and final part of Talking Facts of Life. Hello, welcome to the third and final part of Talking Facts of Life with myself, Mike A. As always, Rick Farrell, and for this week, Rugby League World editor Matthew Shaw.
Sponsored by Eclipse Energy.
We are. I forgot with the last bit. We are proudly sponsored by Eclipse Energy. And yes, any home energy, boiler, heating needs, give them a ring. I'm in the 19th century. Go on eclipseenergy.co.uk. I'm sure they'll be able to help you out. Lifelong Facts fans, sponsors, major sponsors of the club. Got to feel sorry for them as well.
Absolutely.
Main shirt sponsors only had about 5 games.
Yeah.
To be sure. But yes, get them looked up. Final part. Any more thing on Toronto? Has it been on today? Personally, the point I was going to make is that if you mentioned about if furlough hadn't happened, we've had this conversation, Matt. If the whole coronavirus pandemic situation, if we wouldn't have this conversation, because that's the thing that's pissed me off about the response by the rugby league community is that it's always going to happen. It was always going to happen. It wasn't.
No, mate. Look, at the end of the day, if any other club in the British game had been in Toronto's situation with furlough and everything like that, they'd have gone bust.
Yeah.
Simple as that. And you know what? You won't see any of the clubs coming out other than Neil or Joe, but we won't go into that because how Neil or Joe can dig out a club's recruitment, given the recruitment his club's done over the years.
He's got a permanent soapbox, he has. Who was it? Bielsa's got his bucket that he sits on, and Pudgel's got his soapbox.
Not being funny, but Toronto have Hull KR recruitment. You go and analyse Hull KR's recruitment over the last decade. It's been woeful. So he's not the man who should be coming out and criticising their recruitment, but he did make some valid points. However, my question that I would pose to anyone, just to close this up, is what I asked. What does Rugby League gain from kicking out Toronto Wolfpack?
Yeah, it's an
and know what? And the most common answer is, well, it gets rid of the stupid idea of having to travel to Canada for games. This is got to get up. Right, this is something that really winds me up. Right.
Get on that soapbox, Matt. Come on.
I've been to football games on a Tuesday night to go and watch a team in Yorkshire play Exeter City. That took me a lunchtime drive. Got there at 6.5 hours. Now, fans do it, and there's no issue with that. So, what's the difference between that and going to Toronto?
The price.
The price, correct. The price is absolutely the correct answer. But in reality, you look at the American sporting franchises. Do their fans go to the away games every game? No, they chuff. It's not a right. Being able to go to every away game is not a right. It's a privilege that you have in rugby league because the game is based on the M62. That's the reality. But that doesn't mean that's not a strength of the game. It is for a fan who supports his club or her club. And if you are a Leeds Rhinos fan, you want to go watch every Leeds Rhinos game, it being an M62 club is a good thing. But it's not good for the sport.
Yeah.
And it's not all about you as a fan. It's about what's best for the sport. And that's the problem. People are thinking me, not what's good for the game.
I thought as well, because obviously the one thing we didn't mention about the whole Toronto thing was the two clubs that have come out publicly and said that they're ready to step into their place. Now, the fact that they were even considering that, I thought was balmy, not just because of the fact that they're asking to be promoted without earning it on the field, but they were talking at one point in Super League having to play up to 3 games a week, weren't they? At one point, say just to sort of fit them in 2 or 3 games a week.
So the way they've done the schedule, there's a few midweek games, but they've back-ended it from October in the hope that they can get crowds in.
Yeah.
But to sum up the scheduling, if you made the Challenge Cup final, you would potentially have to play 13 games in 54 days.
It's a lot. Which is why I was going to make the point of, I'm surprised that Super League didn't jump at the fact and were sort of thankful that they could have every team or every week that you were supposed to play Toronto is now a bye week, a rest week that is absolutely valuable when you're going to be playing a lot of games in a short space of time. So I can't believe no one's broached that.
Mark Campbell confirmed to me in a piece I did with him on Wednesday, maybe Thursday. I think it was Wednesday, saying that Super League hadn't even acknowledged his invitation.
It's a good PR move by him. You know, it gets people.
He's a FEV chairman, isn't he, Mark Campbell?
Mark Campbell's a FEV chairman, yeah.
I thought it was a good PR move by him. You know, it got their name out there in the discussion with something they've not had before. But I mean, look, anyone based on that.
I don't think he realistically expected to get in. I mean, we thought it was a very good PR move. They may take a bit of offensive by us saying it's a PR move. I thought it was a good PR move. Same time, it just wasn't going to happen because you'd have to, you're carrying on results from the start of the season. So you've either got to ask Featherstone to take on a 0-6 record, or you scrap the season and restart. Well, you've agreed everything with Sky and all their dates. So it just wasn't realistic. It just wasn't going to happen.
No, it's the whole part-time club in a Super League atmosphere. It just wouldn't work.
You know what though, Mike? I've not really got an issue with that. If Featherstone got promoted and wanted to stay part-time, who's to say that they can't go in?
Oh no, I'm not saying that. It's about like the employees and stuff like that. If you're because Fev players have been furloughed and stuff, and if they've got jobs elsewhere, and they want to play on like a Tuesday night or something like that. Let's
not forget the other thing as well is that they would have had to get them all off furlough in training, tested. They wouldn't have been able to start training till Friday at the very, very, very early. So they've effectively had a week and a day of training before going to play a Super League game effectively.
Do you think Super League clubs will be undercut on using that same sort of logic? You think, I don't know how long they've been back in training now, but I don't think it was the case. The case they're having in the NFL, and sorry to Mike to keep bringing up the NFL as an example, but
I've got to sleep now.
No, not a single team can start training camp until every single team can start training. So I wondered, is there anything like that in Super League, or is it just a case?
What they did with Super League, the recommendation was that you had to start 3 weeks before. So the teams that are playing this first weekend coming, they started on the 13th, and the teams that are the week after started on the 20th. So they're all effectively having 3 weeks of training. Obviously, the teams like Hull KR, Hull KR, yeah, but they were playing Toronto, so they're players. But Hull KR, Huddersfield, Leeds, Catalan, and St Helens have all effectively had an extra week. But that's because they're starting a week early. So, yeah.
There was no rule to say that they couldn't do it or whatever, is what I'm getting at.
Well, I think it was No, there wasn't a rule that said everyone had to start at the same time. It was a recommendation to have 3 weeks. I think effectively it wasn't a recommendation. It was basically you are giving them 3 weeks training.
Are we gonna talk about Super League anyway? I know we've got some other things to come on to, but surely now. So this year so far, Liverpool have won the league. Leeds have been promoted from the Championship. Worldwide pandemic, aliens are real. All this crazy stuff in 2020. So the question that you've got to post is it finally Warrington's year?
No.
Wigan. You know what? I think it's almost impossible to call, isn't it? How can you call it given the circumstances?
Well, it's very, very hard.
Having a run in the Challenge Cup is going to have a massive hindrance on you winning the grand final, and you don't know who's going to advance. I think everyone's guessing. I think everyone is guessing.
I think Wigan myself from before lockdown. I think what Wigan have got going from they've got that tradition of winning culture there that Warrington don't necessarily have from kind of top to bottom. Yes, Warrington have recruited very, very well, and their squad should easily win Super League, but Wigan side, who they've got in there, they've got X Factor players, they've got box office players, but they've got winners. As much as I bag him, Sean O'Loughlin is a leader.
What do you bag Sean O'Loughlin for?
I just think he's very overrated. You put Sean O'Loughlin in a Wakefield shirt, he doesn't get international honours.
Mike. No.
We're digressing anyway. I just think Wigan have just got that bit.
Personally, I think this is a year for veterans. Veteran players are the ones, because obviously it's been a very stop-start training schedule. You aren't going to have much time to play yourself into form. You know, you've literally got to hit the ground running and continue where you were. So I think this is the year for where having more veterans on your team is going to make a massive.
So it's also the year where you don't get a lot of recovery time, which is going to badly work against veterans, isn't it?
I think like the veterans understand how to look after the body and would know a lot of recovery of their own body. But I know what you're saying.
I think there's two key things. There's two key things for me. There is the team that has the success will be versatile, that has players that can play in several key positions, and variety across the pitch. And I think also the ones with the professional culture. And that probably links in a little bit to what Mike's saying about Wigan. You would suspect that Wigan's standards, because of the history, suggest that they are one of the more.
So come on, then, let's stick his neck out. Are we gonna make a prediction right now, a week before this?
Wigan Cast Grand Final, Wigan win.
Wigan Cast Grand Final, Cast win.
Yeah,
you're gonna laugh at me. I have a big belief that injury records aren't a fluke. Right. So you look at Hull KR and you look at Wakefield. Injuries every single year. Every single year. And they always go on about how it's bad luck. I'm sorry, when it happens year in, year out, it isn't bad luck.
No.
You're either recruiting the wrong players who aren't durable, you're not training them right, or you're not rehabbing them and conditioning them right. There's something, if it's year on year, there's something you're not doing right. This is a year where injuries and stuff like that are going to be worse than ever. So I'm looking at the squads that have kept their players fit, that have good injury records. And the club that stands out at the top of all that is Salford.
Yeah.
And I would not be shocked if Salford are there or thereabouts in this balmy year.
They're very near the bottom now, though, aren't they? And they don't have
they've technically only got one. They've technically only got one win, and that against Wigan.
Yeah. And they haven't got a Jackson Hastings in the team that they had last year.
Yeah, but the thing is that the players aren't going to play every game, and players are more likely lose players like that. You know, I just think the only thing that works against Salford is the squad size, but the squad is bigger than it was last year, and that's somewhere where a Wakefield come in, countering what I've said, because they have the second biggest squad in the comp. The two biggest squads, and this is what I didn't like about Wakefield and Hull KR's recruitment this year, they've had injuries. So what both teams have done is absolutely made the squads massive.
Yeah.
Rather than go, how can we prevent injuries? How can we make sure we're covered with injuries? They've just got huge squads. But that doesn't really solve the problem for me. Apparently, from what I'm told, there's already 4 injuries at Hull KR just from training. Yeah, it'll be bad luck again, no doubt. Just bad luck.
Could it be the facilities, the training pitch that they're on all the time?
I don't know, Rick. But there's got to be something, hasn't there?
You can't have consistently injured players.
No one every year.
So go on then. Who meets Salford in the grand final?
Well, I don't know if I want to put my neck on line and say Salford make a grand final. Saints are good. Have got good durability. I think Saints will be up there.
Speaking of Saints' experience, James Graham coming back could help him as well.
Saints, Cass, I can see Cass being in in and amongst it, to be honest. I think they've got a nice mix of youth and experience in there. Salford, Saints, Wigan. Maybe. I don't know with Wigan. They're going to be there or thereabouts, aren't they?
They always are. That's the thing about Wigan. They're always there. And they've added Bevan, French and Hastings in there.
The safe bet this year, given everything, is Wigan. They are the safe. What I mean. But what about Leeds? You know, I mentioned Leeds. Leeds had a fantastic start to the year.
Yeah.
Don't have bad injury records. Why not them?
And like Laura said on the show a couple of weeks ago, they're finally appreciating what a good coach Richard Agar is as well. He's a decent coach.
Let's not forget that Catalans are going to get to play games at home, which and I'm telling you now, they'll win every game at home because when they play out there, coach will just take the kids.
Yeah.
They'll just have rest. They'll class Catalans as a rest week, so Catalans will win every home game they have. So I think Catalans are pretty much nailed on for the 5 already.
Wow.
Catalans are nailed on, unless they have a horrific injury crisis. But again, they don't have about path.
You don't tend to know, do they?
Yeah. So that'd be my one prediction. Catalans nailed on for the 5.
Right. Put your money on everyone. You heard it here first.
Rick, who are you going for then?
I honestly think it'll just be Wigan and Cass, and I'll back Cass to end their title drought. And I think
Daryl Powell winning the final. Who'd have thought it?
The youth and experience. You've got to lose a grand final to win a grand final. They did that a few years ago. They've not made it back since. They just seem like I say, it's one of those weird years where someone will just come out of left field and totally take the lead by.
My only concern for Cass is you look at the way that they've played this year, and it's basically all based around Paul McShane and getting out of the ruck quick. Now, if Paul McShane gets injured, that's where my concern comes in with them. The second concern I have is who's playing fullback, because Rankin's gone. Will they make a play for Evolds? Could do.
Yeah.
I think they will do. But now Evolds is a different sort of fullback to Jordan Rankin. Is that just going to work like that? I'm not convinced.
I thought someone had already made a play for Evolds. Hadn't Evolds already signed somewhere for
he has signed for Cass next season. But Jordan Rankin's left early. He's signed for Parramatta and he's already there. So their first choice fullback is gone. So as it stands, whoever's going in at fullback hasn't been playing there. It looks like it's going to either be Greg Eden or James Clare. Now, both good players in their own rights. Greg Eden is it's one of those, isn't he? For every brilliant thing, there's a mistake.
Yeah.
James Clare is just a steady, consistent player. But they're not really fullbacks, the wingers. So that's where my concern is for Cass. I think they've got two things there. One of them is, McShane's not injured. But if he does, I think that they fall apart. So there's a big thing on him being fit. That's why I'm struggling to fully get behind Cass.
I think as well, the one thing that's taken into account is how much these clubs rely on the backing of the home fans when they play down the lane and how much of a boost that gives them. So what's it going to be like playing behind Costas? I wanted to make another side point. What's that?
Huddersfield for Old Trafford.
Yeah. Hey, they've said they want to go for it. I don't blame them. Fair play. Be a bit ambitious.
Hey, I'll tell you what.
Caesar, yeah.
We've not mentioned them. They were brilliant before the lockdown.
They thrashed Catalans away, didn't they?
Yeah, first team to beat Saints at Saints in the league for 18 months. Hammered Catalan. They lost to Wigan, didn't they? And again, this is the problem. They conceded 20 points in the 10 minutes Aidan Caesar was in the sim bin.
Yeah.
So that just leaves that question open, and injuries are going to happen. No player is going to play every game.
Yeah.
Can they win without Aidan Caesar? They're going to have to win it without Aidan Caesar at some point. And again, that's why I struggle to get fully behind Huddersfield. Where I look at Catalan, this is what I'm going with Catalan. They'll win I'm so certain they'll win every home game. And you look at their squad, and even, they weren't completely reliant on just James Maloney, were they?
No.
There's still Tompkins in there.
Wow.
You've got Falau who's a weapon. In the front, you've got Moa who's a leader.
Joel Tompkins gone down there as well. He's a good player.
Played well for them. Matt Whitley, good. I just think it might. I think the circumstances work in Carlan's favour, and I know I'm going to look stupid because they play the first 4 games away from home, and they're probably going to lose most of them. But I just think over the course of the year, they will get enough wins to be in the 5, and then they've got players at that club who have won grand finals, who have won the biggest games in rugby league. They're just thinking a balmy year, it could be theirs.
Make very valid points. Very valid points.
I wanted to make a side point though. You mentioned James Graham coming back. Did anyone manage to catch Luke Thompson's NRL debut? Love seeing I think a British pop going down there and getting stuck into Australians. It's fantastic.
It was weird, wasn't it? Because we were watching it at home. I was like, he's been all right. But I didn't think he was brilliant. I just thought he was all right.
I just love that a British prop in the NRL getting stuck into the biggest in the game.
Yeah.
I want to see.
But and then they raved about him after the game. And I'm like, I didn't think he was that good.
Yeah, it worked.
No. He's had better games in Super League.
He did a lot of defending, didn't he? I just didn't think he carried the ball in much.
No.
And you know, that's where he's so impressive for me, because his leg speed and his power. It's just unlike I've seen in a prop. You know, he's sort of revolutionised that. Do
you think it's such a different game over there that they might convert him to a second row because of his pace and his footwork?
They played him
loose, didn't they?
Played him loose. Maybe.
Pace for a big lad.
Yeah, he's incredible.
Who did Saints play in the quarter-final of the Cup last year where he basically scored a winger's try where he went straight through the middle, sidestepped the fullback and outpaced the other winger? He
did score a try like that against Warrington, didn't he? Where there was a drop ball and he stepped the fullback but I can't,
I tell you, he didn't score against, though, Halifax.
He played... I went and watched him play against Huddersfield last year at Saints, and it was... I've never seen a one-man destruction of a team from a prop like that. Yeah. Huddersfield just did not have a clue.
Funny to mention about Huddersfield, because if you're talking about one-man destruction, we in pre-season got the chance to see Aidan Caesar play for Huddersfield, their new halfback that they signed from Australia. Now, he has a bit of that Jackson Hastings about him, you know, and he just totally controlled our game. I just think that he could be
he's a quality baller, quality player. But
if you take him out of the team, then
that's the thing.
You're right what you're saying.
What about All FC?
They're a bit of a... I don't know. I don't think many people are talking about them.
Next year, well, it depends on how good Andy Last is, really. Because how they've treated Radford is disgraceful. It's awful what's
for a long time
the way that he went. But they've got the players to do it. They just need the right coach. Is Andy Last that because he's ingrained himself? He's a whole lad and that sort of thing, or is he too ingrained in previous cultures? I don't know. Personally, I think if they get someone completely neutral from the outside, plonk them in there, and they can kind of like, I dare say this, like a Guardiola type for rugby league, someone who can get Jake Connor, like parallel between Jake Connor and Ryan Sterling are ridiculous, because you've got Jake Connor who's a fantastically talented rugby player, but he needs that bit of guidance. What is he? Is he a centre? Is he a fullback? Is he an halfback? Get him playing right, and with the other talent they've got, they should be banging on the door, really.
Well, you look at the squad and there's no reason why they can't be up there.
No.
But there's something about them that you always are hesitant to back them, aren't you?
Yeah, because of how good they can be equally as bad. They can be equally
absolutely. I mean, it's one of those. Do you remember last season or the season before where they went and won a big game at Warrington on a Thursday night and then they lost 2 games, like 70-0 back-to-back or something?
The last game...
As far back as that, just look at this season. They played Leeds round 1 and they were unbelievable. They were absolutely class. They battered them, and look at what Leeds have done since. Tells you how well they played. And then they conceded like a 20-point lead to lose to Catalan. They got annihilated by Warrington, and they lose every to someone else as well. No, they nearly lost to Wakefield. They were 18-0 up, weren't they? Nearly lost.
Yeah.
So
They're too inconsistent to be put in that conversation.
Yeah, very much.
The biggest thing, you can put all these predictions out, but like you say, injuries is going to play such a big part of it that someone could just totally come out of left field. You know, there's a team that we haven't even...
Like a Salford last year, it could happen. It could happen. It's predictable.
It's daft saying it after Salford came from left field last year, but if there really was a team to win it from left field this year, it's this, because of the circumstances. You know, you're going to have to balance it right, because you're just not going to be able to win every game. You know, the midweek game backed up by a Sunday, and then you're going to have to just play the kids in some games. So, you know, and if you strike lucky and you end up playing more weakened teams than others, you've maybe got a chance.
It's one of those, you ride the crest of a wave, don't you? If you can get onto something, the season seems short enough now that you can, you know, any momentum that you did. I don't think you could even take into consideration what happened earlier in the season, because it's been so long since they've played.
That's the other thing as well, Rick. It's a really good point, that momentum with how quick games are coming.
Yeah.
And it's another reason why you want Backwell FC, because you look at a club like Wigan, they lose one. On rare occasions, they might lose two, but they always get a win.
Yeah.
And they keep ticking over. Hull FC lose one. If it comes two, it often becomes 4 or 5. And that's another reason why you wouldn't back them this year under the circumstances, I think. It's another reason why you go with a club like Wigan. Because you very, very rarely have a crisis. Well, how often have they lost 3 games on the bounce in the last 10 years?
Yeah.
So.
Very rare. We're coming towards the end. We'll finish on a positive one where we kind of know what's going on. Rugby League World Cup next year. Now, it's been the big positive how it's been done. I thought the videos they did for the host cities where they were based was absolutely brilliant, with that young lass doing the Zoom calls like we're doing now. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. But I now know who's playing where it is, and that sort of thing. Exciting times, and it's good that like the last World Cup, they've got a good balance of where the teams are playing, and like where England are playing the first game up in Newcastle. Hopefully that'll be a sellout there. Any other games you're looking at?
There is a stipulation that I've seen with that. Sorry to interrupt you, Mike. That I've seen Australia play in Hull on the same day as England.
Yes, opening day. You can't get to every game. There's a couple where there's 2 games.
Yeah.
And there's one
but again, like you've said there, what both of you said, going to every game isn't necessarily a given. But one of the successes of the last World Cup is that you could go to kind of 2 games in a day and kind of build it round it there, really. But hopefully what they're trying to do is get enough people to go to each game that it's not necessarily all your rugby league diehard who will go to kind of every game. It's for the places that they go, and hopefully they do get it.
I'll be honest. I've not even looked at the fixtures. And it's nothing against the World Cup. I can't get excited by a fixture list.
No, yeah. You know
what I mean? I just can't. But I'll look at it when it comes to the time when we need to sort myself out. But I think they've promoted it fantastically well. I think everything has been impeccable by him so far.
Yeah.
The draw, job lot, they've absolutely nailed it so far. So for me, it's a brilliant start. It's got the makings of being fantastic. You just hope that the crowds turn up, though. You just
totally, yeah. And Claire Baldwin straight off the bat, role of RFL president, got the World Cup on the one show.
Brilliant.
Starts with that.
Brilliant.
It's brilliant, and with all this uncertainty that we've gone through, and hopefully everything will go so that we have. We've mentioned it on previous podcasts. 2021 World Cup it is the critical moment in our sport going forward, both domestically and internationally. If we crack it and crack it right, it could be a blast off to greater things, or it could go the other way, which I hope it doesn't. Really,
you would suggest looking at it's going to be a success. They're doing everything right, but we'll see. You know, what was it that said 750,000 ticket sales? I mean, it's damn ambitious. But
giving a few away to frontline workers, and I've seen a bit of that. So that's
20,000 and 21 they've done, haven't they? Yeah. Good on him.
Yeah.
Which is brilliant. Which is fantastic.
They've ticked every box so far, haven't they? They've ticked every box. You couldn't ask for them to have done any more at this stage.
I felt sorry for them actually because they had this fantastic launch and the videos we've seen and all that were great, but they sort of got undercut by their own sport. Having the Toronto story come out the day before, so it's like
and Championship and League One.
And all that. So we're like, we've got these fantastic
12 hours before.
Like, too busy arguing about something else, leave us alone for a bit.
But he's got time on his side, though.
I don't think it's a big problem, if I'm honest.
No, because he's got time on his side. He's still 18. Well, best part of 18 months away.
They need a quiet week when tickets go on sale.
Yes,
that's the week they need to be quiet.
I'm looking forward to it, though. I mean, we've been to a few good internationals, haven't we? I'm looking forward to maybe getting to a Jamaica game and having the Caribbean band playing while
it's a shame that there's no games at the Shea, really. I said that Italy-Tonga game, although it weren't the greatest game in the world, to see a full Shea was just amazing. But there are some stuff there's stuff local to us. Greece all the way for me. Blue and white hoops army, smashing plates, love it. But yeah, that Jamaica game that we went to were great as well. They say international rugby league can't beat it. And one of the most important things as well, which we hope they do carry on, because of the success of the World Cup last year, there wasn't a follow-on. There wasn't that kind of talk about like the Olympic legacy after 2012, that sort of thing. There wasn't anything after that. Hopefully, because we've got different people in charge now, that will happen. But I'm just getting excited, mate.
Sorry to interrupt you again. I think the last that ran it was Sally Bolton that of the World Cup who had all these plans for a legacy after the last World Cup in England and then got poached away to go and do another top job, which she totally earned. So maybe it's not always as clear cut as it might have been. We had someone really good in a position and she earned another job elsewhere. Otherwise, maybe
but it was the people or the person above her who is no longer involved now. So now that person is out of the way, and that's always a good thing. He's gone away with all the other tank engines, shall we say. Anyway, we digress on that one. I think that's the end of it, isn't it?
I've got one more point that I wanted to make. I just think I've not heard much people talk about it, but I wanted to make a point about there's a championship club chairman that actually owns 2 clubs. Is there any, Matt, in your experience, is there any sort of conflict of interest that you can think of? The club's worried about that. I think it's Mark.
He don't own 2 clubs.
Well, I think is it Mark Sawyer owns Bradford and Dewsbury.
Oh, so I thought you were about Mark Campbell with.
No.
He actually doesn't own it. It's a relative, doesn't he, who owns it? Very clever.
I think he does own 2 clubs, Dewsbury and Bradford. Obviously,
he doesn't own them. He owns Dewsbury, and he's the CEO, chief exec at Bradford. He doesn't own Bradford.
It on one of the other podcasts, which I won't mention the name of it, with a prominent agent and another journo.
He doesn't own Bradford. It is, look, it's a bit fishy, isn't it? That the guy who owns one club can run another
in the same league. That's the thing for me.
At the same ground.
But he doesn't. Yeah. But he doesn't. Yeah, you're right. It's very, 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 very.
Is it something that journalists are aware of that anyone sort of had any suspicions about, or
the problem is, Rick, that when it came up. So this came up. It'll have been about October last year, September, and we were basically told it's in the rules,
which is great.
And they proved it's in the rules. And then you tell them, well, it shouldn't be in the rules, and they say, well, it is in the rules. And you push for it not to be in the rules, but it's still in the rules.
Wowzer.
We're in the legal back, as you said. But yeah, that's just something that I've had on my mind for a while.
Yeah, you're right. It's a bit dodgy. I'm
not saying it's dodgy. I'm not.
It is a bit dodgy.
Doing anything wrong, but
no. Me neither.
It is perceived that they say things like referees. It's the perception of them cheating in sports. Not that they're actually doing it, but if they're perceived to be doing it, that can kill their reputation. The fact that they probably aren't doing anything untoward, and I'd never expect them to do that. But they the idea can be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like a lot of things in rugby league. It's not necessarily an issue, but it just exploits you and exposes you to a problem, doesn't it? Potentially,
it's not a good image to have, really, is it? It's not.
It's a bit, but let's face it, rugby league ain't the only place where this happens.
No, not at all.
I'd be very surprised to learn about someone who owns 2 sports teams that play in the same league. I don't think that'll happen.
Yeah. I mean, but there's like I think Man City
at the same ground.
They own a couple, don't they? Man City's owners, have they got New York City and another? Is it?
Yeah, Melbourne City, and then
Melbourne, isn't it? And then
I appreciate that they're in completely different continents and they're not going to play in the same comms and stuff. Rick, you're right. I'm not disputing it.
It just opens up the what do you call it? The integrity question. I just feel like
Well, your question is what happens if Bradford have nothing to play for in the final game of the season?
and Dewsbury
Because we need to win to stay up, doesn't it?
Yeah,
You know.
exactly. So I just think you're leaving yourself.
That's the thing.
We always say it, though.
You're right.
Leagues
You're right.
reactive less than proactive usually, and they'll deal with it when an issue arises. So
Yeah.
sorry about that, Mike. I know you said you wanted to end on positive rugby league. I'm bringing it down, man.
Well, rugby league is a multi-edged dice, isn't it? It's a lottery what we talk about.
Still the greatest game in the world.
We've actually got lots to talk about. We've not done a team or anything. We've not struggled for anything. It's been good. It's been like a proper podcast. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much, Matt. You're not doing your a neutral journalistic thing any good wearing that shirt, by the way, but it's much appreciated.
I don't think it's much of a secret anymore, is it? Just get on with it.
We all should be Fats fans anyway. Rick, there's no doubt that you're a Fats fan. Thank you very much for that. And for me, the biggest Fats fan of them all. Thank you very much for joining us. Stay safe, everyone, and up the Fats.